Tucker Carlson has an amazing conspiracy theory about the left and the police that I want to share with you. I don't know how he comes up with this stuff, but I got great amusement out of this.
Well, as usual, the truth bears no resemblance whatsoever to what they're telling you. Think about it for just a second. Democratic politicians control the police departments of virtually every big city in this country. Now they're telling you they want to get rid of those police departments. If they did, that would mean less power for themselves. So right away, you know there's lying going on. Democrats do not relinquish power voluntarily, ever, period. Republicans frequently do. Democrats never do. So that's the first thing to know. Something obviously is going on here beneath the surface. This has to be an attempt to increase the power of the Democratic Party because every policy they push is, always. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening here. Democrats have no intention of abolishing the police. Listen carefully and you will hear them admit that. Instead, they want to replace the police. Take the people who currently have badges, many of whom, by the way, voted for Donald Trump, and swap them out for new people, people who hate Donald Trump and hate the people who voted for Donald Trump. That's what's actually happening here. And it makes sense. Law enforcement is one of the very few institutions remaining in this country that the left does not yet control. Democrats hate the police because they don't control the police. Very simple. Remember 35 years ago when Democrats were constantly attacking the U.S. military? Well, you don't hear that anymore. Why is that? It's very simple. The left took over the Pentagon. No reason to attack people you control, which they do. And they plan to do the same thing to your local police department. Let's be clear. What Democrats are proposing isn't some form of radical libertarianism where the cops leave and citizens police their own neighborhoods. No, it's the opposite of that. What they're proposing is a power grab. Defund the police is a move toward authoritarian social control cloaked in the language of identity politics.
I don't even know where to begin with that. First of all, these guys can't make up their mind. Is the left nothing but a bunch of weak, loser, soy boy idiots who are totally ineffectual and are like frail? Is that what the left is? Or is the left this totally menacing, ever-present force which secretly controls everything in society? Because that'll change on a day-by-day basis. If Tucker's in one mood, he'll go out there and do a rant that, effectively says that all these left-wing politicians are loser, ineffectual soy boys who are frail and useless. Or, like in this rant, he's trying to say that the left is this menacing force that secretly controls everything in society. So right up front, you got that deep contradiction, and that'll change day to day for Tucker depending on what's most convenient to the topic of the day and what suits his argument the most. But, I mean, the thing that's amazing, so let's walk through the argument. First, he says, well, Democrats control the police, so they don't actually want to defund the police. Well, he's correct that they don't want to defund the police. We'll get back to that. But he says they control the police, and then later on he admits, no, they don't control the police, which is why Democrats are against the police, because they want to control the police, but they don't right now, because many police voted for Donald Trump. Listen, I got news for you, Tucker. This is as simple as it gets with the Democratic politicians. They don't really have any thoughts, beliefs, deeply held convictions on the police. Yes, there are technically a lot of Democratic mayors, in Democratic-run cities with these police forces that are acting a fool. But as we see in New York City with Bill de Blasio, the police forces don't listen to the Democratic politicians. They hate them. They're their own little, authoritarian brigades where they have their own little hierarchy and structure, and they really take orders from whoever is at the top of that pyramid in the police department. They're not listening. They disregard. They doxed Mayor de Blasio's daughter the other day. You think they're really listening to him? They're not listening to him at all, and they're the ones with the guns. So, technically they're supposed to be under their control. They're not listening to them. But he says, what the Democrats want to do is not defund the police. They want to replace the police with people who hate Donald Trump. What are you talking about? Tucker, not everything on the left is viewed through the eyes of what burns Trump or what doesn't burn Trump. I got news for you. The further left you go on the political spectrum, the less they're talking about Trump. It's the normie Democrats who never shut up about Trump. The actual leftists think that Joe Biden is almost just as bad as Donald Trump is. So, oh, let's replace the police force with people who don't like Donald Trump. What are you talking about? And then he argues, well, they want to basically make the police a partisan paramilitary force. And they want to do authoritarianism and social control, and they want to, like, enforce identity politics or something. The craziest thing about that argument is what's happening is the exact opposite of what he's claiming is happening. So, in other words, there is right now effectively police forces in major cities that are paramilitary forces, partisan paramilitary forces. But they're right-wing partisan paramilitary forces, and they're trying to quell left-wing movements. Now, yes, in some instances, they're going after the looters and the rioters, and we all agree looting and rioting is wrong. Fair enough. But there's a lot of cracking down and a lot of offensive violence going on against peaceful protesters who are just saying, let's stop killing black people. Let's stop the police from killing black people. So you have these largely left-wing protests and social unrest, and you have these right-wing paramilitary movements being unnecessarily violent and cracking down on these protests. So he's flipping reality exactly on its head. He's not giving a rant. He's not doing a rant saying, man, we really got to stop these police forces from acting like violent partisan paramilitary forces and cracking down on protesters simply because they disagree with their politics. That's not what he's saying. But that is what's happening. These like right-wing paramilitary partisan forces are out there trying to shut down all these left-wing movements. And what does he do? Flips it right on its head and says, the long-term goal of the Democrats, which we need to worry about, is that Democrats want to take over the police departments, fire everybody, bring in people who don't like Donald Trump, and then make it like a partisan left-wing paramilitary force that is authoritarian and enforces identity politics and social controls on right-wingers. The mental gymnastics that this guy does. And here's how you know. There's a little cherry on top which lets you know just how much all of this is totally made up and all in his own mind and not connected to reality at all. Did you hear what he said there? I think it was towards the end. He said the left took over the Pentagon. Let me tell you something, Tucker. The left has about as much control in the Pentagon as Ron Paul-style libertarians have control in the Pentagon. So, in other words, we have none. Zip. Zilch. Dickie McGeezax. You know what the left-wing position is? The anti-imperialist position. The left-wing position is non-intervention in all these wars that we're in. How can anybody in their right mind say that the left took over the Pentagon? The left took over the Pentagon? Tucker himself loves to rant against neoconservatives. Obviously, they're the ones who are still in control at the Pentagon and still in control in the Trump administration. Instead of directing his anger against the people who are continuing these wars, he says the left took over the Pentagon. What are you? It would be wonderful if the left took over the Pentagon, because we wouldn't be in Iraq, we wouldn't be in Afghanistan, we wouldn't have a 432% increase in drone strikes like we have under Trump, we wouldn't be at the brink of war with Iran, we wouldn't be at the brink of war with Venezuela. What are you talking about, Tucker? See, now I'm going to get a little cynical on everybody. I think he knows he's full of it. He's smart enough to know that the left did not take over the Pentagon. He's smart enough to know that, the left is not trying to make the police a left-wing paramilitary force. He's smart enough to know all that. He's just playing to his audience here. Literally the only claim that Democratic politicians are really making is like, okay, let's stop cops from killing 1,000 Americans per year, and let's maybe do some reforms like demilitarization and independent prosecutors and end the drug war. Like, that's what left-wing politicians want. He's concocting this insane conspiracy theory, which makes zero sense. And he ends up saying, the left took over the Pentagon. On what planet did the left take over the Pentagon? Jesus Christ, Tucker Carlson. The conservative commentators are really struggling with what to do with this moment. because the killing of George Floyd and the protests afterwards, like all the polling data is showing that people are like, oh, okay, racial justice issues just like leapfrogged a million other issues to the top of the list. A lot of people are concerned, and now they see what's going on and they want to change what's happening with the police. And so, in other words, it was so cut and dry in how wrong it was that now society is overwhelmingly going in that direction. So the right-wing commentators are struggling with how to manage this. And what Tucker did is he went full Law and Order and full conspiracy theory. And, hey man, credit to him for being creative, but not a single thing he said there has any resemblance to reality. And I think on some level, even he knows he's full of it in this one.